Welcome to the Everyone's a Critic movie review podcast. I'm your co-host, Bob Zerl.
Hey, I met you. You are not cool.
With me, as always, is professional film critic Sean Patrick.
I am the smart. S-M-R-T. I mean S-M-A-R-T.
And Josh Adams.
Stick around.
Visit us at IHateCritics.net. Also, Everyone is a Critic podcast.com. We're on Facebook at Everyone's a Critic podcast. Our Twitter and Instagram handle is Critics Pod. There you can check out our top fives, read Sean's reviews, any news that gets posted.
Be sure to check out my interview with Saoirse Ronan, which is on our Facebook page now.
Yes, that's on there as well, and the most well-reviewed movie of all time. Still, it's Lady Bird. Definitely go see that if you haven't seen that as well. And if you could just click on Sean's reviews, he gets just clicking on it gets him some, like, a fraction of a cent or something like that. But, you know, sometimes I just click it and leave it up while I work. And then share them too. Share out the podcast, share the reviews, anything you can to help spread the word.
We have a review, right?
Yes. We're on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play. If you subscribe in iTunes and rate and review the podcast, it helps us move up the charts. And we did get a brand new review from Film Vault Fan. And it simply says, my new favorite podcast, which 2 in a row with the word favorite in it's pretty
nice.
Exciting. So please go to iTunes, rate and review the show. We will read the review on the air. I think we just did there. So thank you, Film Vault Fan. There's no real news this week other than the Star Wars reviews, which we promised Josh we wouldn't talk about.
I'm trying so hard to avoid everything.
Except for... and then...
It's Mark Hamill's last Star Wars movie.
Oh, good God.
I never would have guessed they hired Scooby-Doo to be Snoke.
Oh,
What?
God.
What?
Porgs are Ray's parents.
It was Jar Jar Binks all along.
John Boyega apparently does hate porgs. I've heard that.
Oh.
Mark Hamill is calling him out on Twitter, asking him why he hates porgs.
He's trying to avoid all social media. It's
It's going to be difficult. That would be a long stretch till Thursday.
That wasn't a spoiler.
But he's missing stuff like that because he's avoiding social media.
The important news, like Mark Hamill and John Boyega trolling each other over porgs.
That's the thing. Like, I should have stopped watching this weekend for any kind of anything because the premiere took place this past weekend, and I'm seeing photos coming in of everyone from the cast.
John Boyega barely made it. He was in Atlanta, and they got a rare snowstorm there, and almost didn't make it.
They get snow. We don't get snow.
Thankfully. Keep your snow.
Anyway.
Less than 8 years until Canada.
Trailers this week. The big, I guess they're both big. Jurassic World, Fallen Kingdom. Is that what it's called? Thoughts?
It's okay. I don't really care.
So you've got another story in which a character that has something vested in the park tells somebody else that says, no way, I'm not doing that again. Well, if you just come back, nothing bad can happen. And then they say, run again. Now, Jurassic Park, Jurassic World, the official Facebook site or whatever, said they put up a post that showed characters from each movie saying run. And I thought, you know that you're trolling yourself, right? That basically all of these movies are the same thing over and over again, and you're trolling yourself. The trailer itself is not impressive. I tried really hard to put on a good face for my son. He waited for me to watch the trailer, and we did together on Thursday night. And he was like, that looks great. And you could tell he was straining to say something about it too, because it looks like the same typical crap. Now all of a sudden there's a volcano on that island and they're interested in saving dinosaurs. What? Who cares? I mean, the director is Jay Bayana, director of The Impossible. I suppose If that means something to you, then great. He does disaster scenes very well. So with the volcano in this, perhaps that's going to be the highlight of the film. I think it gives something away that, the volcano does erupt. I mean, and all of the dinosaurs are loose. And,
The Jurassic Park coast is toast.
oh my gosh. Well, the coast kind of is toast right now. That's the thing.
Well, that's not funny.
Oh, no, of course it's not funny. But I have to watch how I intonate certain phrases. Yeah.
Hey, we're not always joking.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird for me. I was sitting there because I remember last year. Was it last year or 2 years ago?
2015.
That when Jurassic World came out, and Sean and I were we liked it for what it was, and Josh didn't like what it was at all. And I'm fighting with myself, being like, how can I sit here and whine about Civil War and all these other superhero movies, and then say this one's good? I just, for whatever reason, I don't care what it is. It just, I know it's a monster movie. It's whatever it is, and it doesn't bother me. So this doesn't bring anything to the table. I agree there, other than Jeff Goldblum's back.
Oh yeah, and he's saying the same lines. I mean, come on, do something new.
But I feel like they're trying harder than they did with Lost World and Jurassic Park 3. So I hope that's at least
Low bar.
a bar nonetheless. Then Ready Player One.
It's good. That's a good trailer. Still don't care about this movie. I've never read the books, so I'm not invested.
There's something very interesting about the trailer. The teaser stated Christmas 2018. Look forward to this. And then all of a sudden at the end of this trailer it says March 30th. What? I heard nothing about this film being moved up. And I mean, I read the movie news at least every other day. Whether or not I grab onto something important, I don't know. But at least I should know that a Spielberg movie was moved up by 9 months into a season that can make some money. I mean, Batman versus Superman made good money at the end of March.
Fate of the Furious part, right?
That's been the first week of April. I mean, it's only a week off, so it's in that same general area. But yeah, this seemed ripe for a Christmas release next year. That made a lot of sense.
I think they're running from something.
That's kind of what I was thinking, because this is a weak trailer to me, where they don't showcase some of the Spielbergianisms of that first teaser, and I didn't get that feeling of this is a John Williams score as well, like this is going to be an important movie. This seems like we need to make sure that people remember that this movie exists trailer, and that's unfortunate. And just dropping in nonchalantly March 30th to me speaks bad about the film. I mean, Spielberg's going to have 2 movies coming out within roughly 2 months of each other in the early part of next year. It's just weird.
Yeah, the other thing, I mean, the thing about Ready Player One is the pop culture references weren't in here a whole lot till the very, very end of the trailer, which they were in there a lot in the teaser, the teaser was kind of a mess too. I don't know. It's not something that's in my wheelhouse. I might try to read the book and give it a shot, just because I did it with it. Why not do it with this?
Is it just Tron with like a bunch of pop culture stuff?
I mean, I know Tron's in it. Other than that, I'm not sure. I haven't read it myself either, but it appears to be like something of a nerd Bible, a nerd fictional Bible, in the same way that Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy was, and very referential, obviously, but also hits home with a lot of people around our age. And so this should be very important for us, but I'm not getting that same feeling from it. I don't know why that is. And the references they do show in this trailer are roughly the same ones that they did before. There's nothing new that you're seeing. You're still seeing the DeLorean, the Iron Giant, Tron, etc.
Which makes me think it's just going to be a small portion of the movie.
Yeah.
Maybe early on and then towards the end.
And that's such a huge part of the book, as I understand, is the dad or whatnot grew up in the 80s and taught his son like a lot of what he knew, and then the 80s were like a thing. It's almost as if American history being important to people, this is their American history, is the 80s pop culture stuff. And so that's what the society is based on.
It's like Pixels for movies. Pixels
don't
with
say
video
that.
games.
I mean, basically, if Ivan Drago's not in it, then I have no interest.
Maybe at some point you'll hear a Rocky IV song
I
playing
really
in the
hope
background.
not.
I don't know.
I figured I was safe in not having that happen, but watch it happen. All right, let's move on to our movies, and we got 3-ish new movies and a catch up. I don't know. One of them's they're two. I don't know. Tanya. Let's just go there.
All right, Tanya. The box office returns on this were incredible this weekend, even though it was only on a very limited number of screens. They got to be kicking themselves like, why didn't we put this out this weekend when there was nothing else out there?
Right.
Because it actually almost beat Just Getting Started, even though Just Getting Started is on 2,100 screens nationwide. That's how bad that movie did and how great I, Tanya did in a very limited release. This is the story of Tanya Harding, and for some reason, I've always just had this little soft spot for Tanya Harding. I've always just kind of felt a little bit bad for her. I always had a little bit of sympathy because I never bought for the moment that she was fully involved in organizing this thing. I bought her story because she was an abused woman, and she did have this group of morons around her. Which, I mean, this is like there's like two different movies going on here. There's this Tanya Harding movie going on, and then there's like this Coen Brothers film, like Raising Arizona, like Coen Brothers movie going on around this whole the incident, and it works in ways like Margot Robbie is incredible. She just nails the performance of Tanya Harding. All of the aspects that I have always kind of admired about her. Not admired is a weird way to put it. The qualities that I always just sympathized with. She nailed it brilliantly. She was always just a little bit too tough and a little bit too country for that snobby group of skating people, and I always loved that about her. She was a power player when everybody else was all finesse, and I liked that about her. And this movie really captures that. I don't think it necessarily works entirely together because, like I said, there are two different seeming movies going on here. But I like it overall for the performances, and especially for her. And Allison Janney is just pure acid in this movie. She's amazing.
The funny thing about you saying you always grabbed onto Tanya Harding as something of a sympathetic person, she to me was always the beginning of trash TV. And what I mean by that is 1993, 94, I had watched the 92 Olympics as well, and so I knew who she was. And then all of a sudden when this news started dominating ESPN, and I had been watching SportsCenter religiously for a couple of years at that point, you turn it on wanting to see results of things and box scores and highlights and things like that. And instead you're leading every single day with Tanya Harding stories. And then all of a sudden you see there's Geraldo Rivera doing things about it. And it's like it became trash TV in a way. And that's not to say that what happened to Nancy Kerrigan wasn't a very serious thing. Of course it was. It's assault. But the circus around it was, and then it kind of leads in the movie even shows in the background the O.J. Simpson story beginning to happen. I'm like, oh, well, it really led into that, and then it hasn't really stopped since then. Yeah. So Tanya Harding and Nancy Kerrigan, that story is the first trash TV that I've seen, and that's just basically what we do now. Bombi Cannavale's character in this movie basically admits, like, well, what we were doing was unusual, and now everyone does it, which is true. So there's a lot of different angles that this movie comes at, and there's a lot to juggle. I focused more on what Margot Robbie was doing as Tanya Harding, and the amount of abuse that she undertook, according to this film, is extraordinary and would break anyone to the point where if she did plan it, I wouldn't necessarily blame her because she has to be warped going through that kind of life. And all of these bumbling characters, I wanted to laugh at them, but then I also was thinking, you're a terrible, terrible person. I can't bring myself to laugh like at a Raising Arizona situation where they're bumbling, but they're trying really hard to do their best. These are just bad people that stumble into something, especially the Sean Eckhart role. He's an international terrorism
hilarious.
agent.
That guy is
yes
so
and
funny.
no. I mean, the performances, though, really pull all of this off. Sebastian Stan, Margot Robbie, and Allison Janney, of course. I mean, as soon as I saw her on screen, I knew that she was going to give us the same acidity. That's a good word for it, that she usually gives. But I enjoyed the film a lot. What it didn't do completely for me was it had a bit of fat on it. And I've noticed this in other Craig Gillespie films. Hustle and Flow is a good example. If I'm thinking of the right one, I think that it's Hustle and Flow. I could be wrong. Maybe that's Craig Brewer. If I'm getting it wrong.
That is Craig Brewer, actually, yeah.
Shit. Okay.
Gillespie is the guy who did Lars and the Real Girl.
Oh, okay. I like that
That's
one.
a trim movie.
Okay. Getting my Craigs mixed up. This one has a little bit extra on it where it could have been wrapped up faster towards the end. And I know that they want to include everything, and they're including what she's doing now because it's something of a biopic that's told from a different angle, but it's a little too long. They had an arc there that could have ended with that scenario instead of continuing on a little bit. And then you've got like a really, really solid movie. So it just misses, I think, being a part of a top 10 for me, even though it's extraordinarily fascinating, especially because we were all on board with this almost every day.
Craig Gillespie, I talked about it in my review, which you can read on our Facebook page, that he's an extraordinarily hit and miss director. He can be very good and then he can be very bad. Like he directed Fright Night, the remake, which is bad. $1 Million Arm, which is just the sleepiest baseball movie ever. But then he also directed Finest Hours, which is completely underrated. Like an amazing movie, Finest Hours. And then he directed Lars and the Real Girl, which is a movie I absolutely love. This one is somewhere in the middle there. It's like it's really, really good in some ways, and it's kind of not good in other ways. There's a confusion to his direction at times. Like when you're talking about the structure of the film, the structure of the film is basically a documentary-style structure, not unlike, say, The Office, basically, where people are, like, talking to the camera one moment and then not acknowledging that the camera's there the entire time kind of thing. It's weird. And you can't tell sometimes who is remembering what. And he said in an interview that that's purposeful, that he did that intentionally. He didn't want any one person controlling the narrative. But at the same time, I found that confusing, trying to figure out, okay, whose memory are we in now at this point? It doesn't, and that threw me off a lot, trying to put the pieces of this together. And so aspects of this movie work. The performances are incredible. There's a lot of big laughs, but the movie as a whole doesn't quite work for me.
For me, I'm kind of where Josh is. It's the bottom of a top 10, maybe just outside of it. What you just said about the confusion, I actually kind of liked that. It's like several unreliable narrator.
Yeah.
I guess what I'm getting at though is that Tanya's for me is the sympathetic one, and hers is the memory that I believe the most. I think the other people are lying, and so I don't necessarily look at her as an unreliable narrator. Especially when your movie, when this movie is going for big laughs, but it's also trying to be serious about her having been abused, that gets into a weird gray area that I was not comfortable with.
And Josh kind of made it sound like the gray area, the uncomfortability of laughing. But I guess for me, they've taken this. It's such a well-known story that one, it's like, why do you even got to do it again? But it's such an overplayed, overtold story that, I don't know, it almost kind of got itself away from real life and got to a place where you could laugh at it, I guess, for me. I don't know. It was, I don't know. I don't really think any of them are necessarily reliable. You're going to get their truths, and I think that was kind of what he was bringing to it. And it worked for me, and I enjoyed watching it. I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought, mainly for the performances and even the fat Josh talks about. Because I was enjoying the actors and all. It didn't bother me. I agree. You probably could have wrapped it up differently, but it also kind of played in a role. She wasn't making money. You're not making money in the Olympics, and now you've been ruined, and you can't do anything. Not maybe she deserved it. Probably deserved at least a portion of it. But now, how do you go and make money?
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't know. I enjoyed the movie. I enjoyed it way more than I thought I would, and I thought I was going to like it anyway. But again, it's probably low top 10, maybe 15 area.
It makes me think that Margot Robbie, though, it's not like she's not a star already. I mean, she's obviously a star, but it's a relatively recent star. Wolf of Wall Street was the first time I remember hearing the name. And that was 2013, going to 2014, and it's 2017 now. And she's a producer on this film as well. And she's got her own production company that's trying to bring a lot of things into the fold. and she seems to. I mean, this is an incredible performance by her. Whichever way you look at it, she kind of sinks into being Tanya Harding. Sometimes I was thinking, yeah, that really works. But then at other times, she's almost too glamorous of a person to fit with what Tanya Harding was going for, a little rough around the edges as a skater. I remember watching that thinking to myself, those are really pretty dresses, but she seems uncomfortable in them. But then all of the other skaters seemed to be like natural in their environment, and she always seemed to be the odd one out. That meant, though, that when she was landing all of these major jumps, it was that much more effective because she stood out that much more. Margot Robbie does a good job of showing her as an outsider. Those abuse scenes, though, I mean, it was so hard to watch that. We're talking about brutal stuff here, smashing into mirrors and shooting shotguns and all of the worst stuff that you could possibly imagine almost played too much on the line of comedy for me. And I understand what the movie was trying to do, but it still made me feel a little uncomfortable watching.
Well, and I don't think I don't think any of those scenes were intended to be funny per se. Mm-hmm. But the comedy around, before and after, I think those scenes were, obviously that was part of her story. That's what she believed, and he didn't believe he did it. But they're needed to really kind of explain who he is and give sympathy to her. So I don't know. I thought it was a pretty, just kind of a well done movie, and I didn't really have a problem with it. Other than I don't really have a problem. Just it's not quite that. It's not going to be one of my top 2 or 3 by any means. Yeah. But anything else on I, Tonya? Yeah, 61,000 per screen.
Yeah, that's a remarkable number.
Killing of a Sacred Deer. This one's been out for a while, but we finally have all seen it. Sean, you can lead.
Yeah, this is Yorgos Lanthimos, the director of The Lobster, directing what is essentially a Greek myth, a Greek tragedy. The story has it that Colin Farrell is a doctor who, in his past, was an alcoholic and may or may not have been operating on a man while he was intoxicated, and that man died. He's befriended the son of that man, and the son is very odd. He's off from the first moment that you see him, just a little bit strange. And that strangeness works so well to the tone of this film. That kid is incredible. He controls the entire tone of that picture with every little tick, every little, just that little edge of just too much that he is. He throws off the entire rhythm of the entire movie, and it is so riveting to watch. The way this plays out, I don't really even want to go too much into it because I think you need to see it for yourself to really get the full effect of it. But that kid is he's the central part of this plot. You could say he's the antagonist versus Colin Farrell and his family. Really remarkable. I mean, it's taken me weeks to try and nail down how I feel about this movie. But now that I'm sitting with it, now that I'm actually talking about it and thinking about that kid, what is his name?
Barry Keoghan?
Barry, yeah. He was in Dunkirk, and he is so incredible in this movie. The way a little teenage boy can just control the screen opposite like Nicole Kidman and Colin Farrell. That is remarkable. And I know a lot of that has to do with Yorgos Lanthimos' direction, but I think a lot of it does come from him just being that good in this movie.
Yeah, do not Google Greek tragedy in the title of this movie. Cause not that I did that, but I did Google the movie and Greek tragedy comes up right away. And I kind of figured out what happens before I saw it, which I don't know, maybe that was a good thing or a bad thing, but I enjoyed it too. But Josh, go ahead.
Oh, you enjoyed it. Please elaborate though before
I can't. I mean, I agree with Sean. The performance of the kid he gets creepier and creepier throughout the whole movie. And I mean, there's a scene with Nicole Kidman's in there doing something and there's just kids in the room, and it's just like he's like a god in that scene. And it's Nicole Kidman, one of the best actresses around. And I don't know, it just was a really powerful scene for me. And the end of the movie is just you can't really talk about it.
Ooh,
but
yeah, that is a hell of a scene, though. Like that is a hard scene to watch. It reminded me of like watching like a Michael Haneke movie, like Cachet or something like that. Like you're very, very European, which obviously Yorgos Lanthimos is European, so it makes sense. And that's hardcore, man. That was hardcore.
And it makes you ask the question, what would you do? And that's always a fun, I don't know if fun's a word, but that's always an interesting.
Well, Bob, you have kids.
My wife and I had the discussion.
The choice is
Sorry,
always
Harrison.
Sean nailed mine. And that's not really a spoiler. It kind of is, but it's beyond that too. There's just a lot there, and
so much there.
It does take its time, and I can see why it would be boring.
The atmosphere is so oppressive, which kind of was in The Lobster too. It's just it creates this very bizarre atmosphere, and it just always feels off. Like the thing that really the conversation they have right to start this movie is about a watch. And it's the single most boring, monotone conversation that any two people could ever have. And I was so riveted by just how incredibly boring that conversation was. Like, how long is this going to go on like this? And it actually ramped up the tension for me. I became more tense, wanting to understand how two people could be so very boring together.
And before we get to Josh, the performances of Nicole Kidman and the kids, as they change throughout the movie too, she gets really. I mean, it's just, and it's hard to explain without giving too much away, but just kind of the way they change is really creepy and freaky too to me.
It's like turning on the hot water a little bit hotter. The steam starts to get steamier and hotter as it goes on, or it turns off a little bit and cools off for a moment. That's the way this movie is controlling you, is making you feeling that heat, that tension.
And Alicia Silverstone's in it.
Yeah, that was a messed up scene.
I actually asked that question out loud. Is that Alicia Silverstone? My God, it is. Where's she been for 20 years? Okay. Now, I've likened this, and I sent a message to you guys saying, does this get any better? Because 25 minutes in, I was considering blowing my brains out. And the reason being, it was so boring, and the conversations were so inane that it was losing me. And I'm on board with a slow pace. I watched A Ghost Story last week, for crying out loud. Now, granted, it was not good, but I stuck with it the entire time because I was still like, it's got to have a payoff of some sort, right? There's got to be something interesting, and there was. This does have a specific tone, but these characters don't speak English. Like, they're speaking English, but they don't speak English. It's like watching a European Wes Anderson film. It really is, where everyone else watching it and everyone else in the movie gets it. And I'm a part of this crowd that's on the outside that didn't get into the club on time, so I don't know what this musical act is all about, even though they're gyrating all over the stage. That's what this movie is about to me. It is perplexing to the point of pointlessness. And I want that 2 hours of my life back. I can't get it back. And I skipped Empire of the Sun this week to watch this ginormous hump of garbage. And I recognize that there are performances that are unique here. It's a unique film. And if you like The Lobster, last year I recognized The Lobster as, well, that was interesting. I didn't get it, but I mean, that was interesting. And the trailer promised something that was just different. The trailer for this one promises something that's a little bit different than the film, too. It seemed, it's like someone's creating trailers for him that's getting people in the theater, and he's showing him something that is completely different from what we're used to. I can give him that much credit, okay? That much. Yes, there's atmosphere to it. Yes, there's oddities to it. Beyond that, man, if that's a payoff, like that particular scene, okay, it's not like I haven't seen that kind of tough choice before, so there's nothing new about that. Is it tough to watch? Yes, but that's 5 minutes of a 2-hour movie. That's it, man. Like, why can't have a single bit of an explanation as to why these kids are going through the maladies that they're going through? how in the world does he have the power that he has? If at some point I knew that it was a Greek tragedy reimagined as a film, something like "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou" was the Odyssey, right? If I knew that going in, I would at least be able to say, oh, okay. But no, I had to sit through all of it hoping for a payoff that never came. This is a singular experience for Josh because what happens sometimes is you guys will get something, I won't, and then I sit here like an ass trying to describe the movie. But this is something that happens to me a lot. And it's not like I was the only one in the room saying, what in the flying F is this? I mean, it's not just me.
Well, and I don't think it's about getting it or not getting it. I think it's, you mentioned Wes Anderson. We've, the Gilmore Girls, the way they talk, there's certain people are into it or they're not, and this definitely has if you're not into the way that they're the tone of what's going on.
Oh, sure.
It's not
prestige the room because they're talking in sentences that they aren't going anywhere, and then they go into a new subject, and then there's something else new, and it's like, who is Tommy Wiseau directing this? Seriously, but it's prestige Tommy Wiseau because it's released through A24, right? No, it's just shit, and we're supposed to say that I'm supposed to say that it's great. I can't. Sorry.
I mean, I don't know. We can both be right.
Yes, of course.
And I think that's kind of. I mean, I just think it's more of a you don't like what it is more so than it's. If that makes sense.
That is absolutely a good middle ground to arrive at. Would it be fair to compare it to like having the experience of a Wes Anderson film, though? In that if you go along with that and you're already on board with what that kind of film is doing, then you're okay with multi-directional sentences that don't necessarily mean anything at the end.
And I would have said no, but I get what you're saying. It's nothing like Wes Anderson. It's just its own world. So
yes,
you have
to
kind of. So if you're a Wes Anderson fan, don't necessarily go and see this movie.
No, they'd like it.
I mean, if you're somebody who needs a logical explanation for what's going on, you're not going to enjoy this.
Yeah.
There's not one. He's not going to explain the central twist of the film to you. He's just going to. You just have to sit there and take it. And I was for the first half of it, I was going. I need to know why this is possible. And then there's a scene where the kid is locked up in their basement, and the scene is so incredibly powerful and weird. It's between him and the daughter that is just so powerful and strange that that got me. The kid just drew me in, and I could not resist watching that kid the rest of the way and the way he affected everybody else. And then the pieces started to fall into place for me. The way he was changing the atmosphere of every room that he was in. That level of performance was just what finally got me. And then I was in the rest of the movie. I was in, and then it got to that big scene, and I was like, "Holy shit, this is fucking amazing!"
And I don't know, just to piss Josh off some more, I would put the kid's performance up there with like Javier Bardem in No Country for Old Men or Heath Ledger in Dark Knight. It's that creepy, and just the way I don't know, it was just he owned the movie, and he needed to for it to work. If you like that kind of thing.
No, seeing that kid's face, he bears something of a resemblance to Ty Sheridan from the Ready Player One trailer, and Tree of Life and whatnot. I thought that it was him, and not until I started looking up the credits for this film that I see that new name, and I'm like, oh yeah, he was in Dunkirk. Duh.
Yeah, but I believe it's out on video already. So if you want to, and I say video, but you can find it. And then the only movie that came out this week, nationwide, is just getting started. I keep forgetting the name of this movie every time I have to say it or write it down.
I wrote just the nastiest review of this movie. I really did. And the thing of it is that I started writing it before I knew who directed it, and then after I found out who directed it, I felt so bad that I had to rewrite the review and really lay into him because this is really terrible. And there's just no excuse for a guy with that much. I know he's competent. I've seen him direct before. This is the guy who directed Bull freaking Durham. Directed this piece of shit, and it's so amateur. It's so poorly made. It's completely unfunny. It's based off the worst sitcom jokes you could think of about, oh, hey, old people still have sex. That's so hilarious. What, old people still think about sex? Fuck you. Fuck you. God, it's so bad. It's so terrible. There are like 3 different movies going on. Nobody seems to give a shit. Morgan Freeman's just dancing around bored. I mean, just awful. What an awful movie.
I thought about seeing it just to try to have an argument back with you. Had no time.
Like, I mean, Ron Shelton can direct a movie. You've seen him direct a movie, right? We've all seen Ron Shelton direct a movie. Here, he's doing like handheld camera for some reason, and is just shaking like he just doesn't know how to hold the camera properly. Like,
He's older.
Just it's static, just a static shot. You got 2 people in the scene talking. There's just 2 people in the scene talking. Morgan Freeman's talking to Tommy Lee Jones. There's no reason for the camera to just be shaking all over the place. And he's trying to hold it straight. He's trying to hold the camera straight, but he can't. It's just moving.
There might be a reason he hasn't directed in 14 years. I mean, seriously. That's a long time.
Apparently, direction is something like being a director is a skill that you can lose. Apparently.
Did he write this one?
I don't know if he did. Oh, God. Gets even worse.
Maybe he just kind of gradually got worse. Because his first one was Bull Durham, right? That was where he started.
That was his first big hit. There were a couple of smaller ones.
As a director? Or just a writer?
As a writer.
He did Tin Cup. He did White Men Can't Jump, which are both movies that I like.
Dark Blue, Kurt Russell.
Not my favorite, but I mean, competent.
Yeah.
I would say Play It to the Bone even is competent. Hollywood Homicide is bad, but competent. This is completely incompetent.
But I mean, in 14 years and he's in his 70s, so that makes him in his 50s. Probably. Not that it just when you're not doing it and it's a muscle, maybe you lose or maybe you, I don't know. It really just looks like a
Barry Levinson and Rob Reiner got bad too, so maybe
it really just looks like it looked like a cash grab. You're going to get that old audience before Star Wars or maybe during Star Wars, and they didn't. But that's kind of what looked like they were going for.
They almost lost to movies that aren't even on 100 screens.
It was a 10th movie this week behind. I mean, Coke. I mean, not. Wonder's at 100 million already. Wow. The Disaster Artist was number 4. Yeah, it happened. It came out.
You want to read my hate that's on our Facebook page? It's the most. I just laid into it so bad. I just went right after it.
You should have like a column at your site, Geeks Media, whatever it is. It's just my hate. Let's see here.
Put your top 5. Who's your top 5?
And because of this movie, which we tried to avoid completely for any segments, but we couldn't. So we did top 5 Morgan Freeman / Tommy Lee Jones movies. I don't believe we have any Instagram or Twitter, or
Steve
do we?
sent us something. But while you're reading, I'll try and make sure I get it up. I was trying to do it quickly before you said it, but it didn't work.
We'll start with Uncle Jeff in alphabetical order. Number 1, The Coal Miner's Daughter. 2, The Dark Knight. 3, Deep Impact. 4, Hope Springs. 5, A Prairie Home Companion. Jason from New Mexico has number 5, Cobb. 4, Lucy. 3, Captain America, The First Avenger. 2, 7. And number 1, The Electric Company, with saying it's my list.
Yes, it is. Who was in The Electric Company, though?
Morgan Freeman.
Oh, really?
Yeah, right when it first started back in '72.
Cool.
Cousin Jeff had The Shawshank Redemption, 7, The Fugitive, Coal Miner's Daughter, Driving Miss Daisy. And then Brian Landon, these are all from Sean's Facebook page, had The Shawshank Redemption number 1, 2, The Dark Knight Trilogy, 3, Glory, 4, The Fugitive, 5, The Men in Black Trilogy. Did you get good, Steve's?
I do. He has number 5, 7, with Morgan Freeman, 4, Men in Black, 3, U.S. Marshals. Good for you. I'm wondering why Fugitive isn't above that, but that's okay. 2, Shawshank Redemption, and number 1, Unforgiven.
You have yours ready, Josh? Or do you want me to go?
Yeah,
I can do mine. I can do me and Sean's.
Yeah, Bob and I had the exact same list.
Number 5, The Dark Knight Trilogy. Number 4, $1 Million Baby. 3, 7, 2, Unforgiven. And number 1, No Country for Old Men.
I considered The Fugitive. I even thought a little bit about Prairie Home Companion after I reminded myself that Tommy Lee Jones was in that. Because that's a really good movie that people missed out on because people don't like Robert Altman. But
mine is void of No Country for Old Men. Sorry, I know that's not a popular thing. It's not like I don't love it.
It's your list. It's your list.
But when I put like The Fugitive on there in The Dark Knight, it's
Totally
not
kidding. I'm not
playing it up.
I
I'm not
gave
offended by anything.
I
I
gave
am okay to be correct all the time. It's
I
okay.
gave Josh crap before the show started.
All right. So my number 5 is Unforgiven, my favorite Western. 4, The Shawshank Redemption. 3, 7, 2, The Fugitive, and number 1, The Dark Knight as a trilogy for Morgan Freeman.
And then we'll play catch up. I didn't edit the sound clip down, so I'm just play it anyway. Maybe.
3 tomatoes are walking down the street. Papa tomato, mama tomato, and baby tomato. Baby tomato starts lagging behind, and Papa tomato gets really angry. Goes back and squishes him. Says, ketchup.
All right, I'll just turn the volume down.
Hey, there you go.
We're going to play catch up with Battle of the Sexes.
Go ahead, Josh. You saw. I've already reviewed this on the show. So
Yes, story of the Billie Jean King, Bobby Riggs tennis battle in 1972, I believe it was. And I've seen clips of this over the years. And the story from my parents, who were casual tennis watchers, which made me a casual tennis watcher, was something of a thing to know of. So seeing a story about that was something I was invested in. And seeing Emma Stone and Steve Carell play those roles, definitely invested in it. I started to get really wrapped up in this movie. It's done very well. It doesn't have a lot of fat on it. I believe this is the director of Sunshine Cleaning and Little Miss Sunshine, the two directors together.
David Ferris.
Thank you. I found this to be fascinating because it's not a sports movie where you're just dealing with tennis and volleys back and forth and the cinematography of volleys back and forth. Tennis can be exciting, but also can be completely awful to watch. And not every serve or volley in tennis is going to be incredible. So what they do here, though, is focus on the two people, Bobby Riggs and Billie Jean King. Her story is very interesting to me because I knew that she was a lesbian. I knew that Bobby Riggs was a chauvinist, okay, but I didn't know how that came to be or anything like that. Billie Jean King is now in her 70s, and Bobby Riggs has passed away. So there's not a lot of recency to this story in knowing about it. The film treats everything with respect, and the way that it turns out, that the film tells us at the very end, gives credence to what the film is saying. It makes sense that what they're portraying isn't just a shining example of how these people lived their lives. You know, it's not a puff piece, I think, for any of them. They had difficulties. Billie Jean King was married and didn't have the opportunity to be herself 100%. But in analyzing the film as itself, I don't think it meant to be, and it isn't. It isn't like this popular film that's taking the cinema by storm or anything like that, or took the cinema by storm. It's important, though. It's so incredibly important because that's a landmark moment. It should be in 1972. Once that takes place, it's like a symbolic death of a particular generation of people's thoughts. And we see that in the film. Bill Pullman plays a particularly nasty person. Jack Carter or something along those lines, the head of the WTA at that time. And he just doesn't give in, ever. I mean, he's always on the side of men are better. This is a very landmark moment in that it should have changed everything going forward, but I'm sitting here 45 years later thinking to myself, we're still doing the same baloney, and it seems like we've done the back end of it. We're just going backwards and backwards and backwards, and if it's not marginalizing women in some sort, it's marginalizing another group. And I don't mean to get too political, but what this film did for me was remind me that should have been the end of it right there. That should have been, women can do everything. Okay, can you just give them everything that is equal to men? And they're still fighting 45 years later to get on the playing court, so to speak. So in that way, this film is powerful for me. And then there's the whole performance of Emma Stone as Billie Jean King. Not only does she manage to get some of the athletic mannerisms of her down, but she really kind of looks like her too. It's uncanny. And Steve Carell, they did a great job of making him look like Bobby Riggs, and he pulls off the lovable loser very well. I don't think he really really was that bad. I mean, the film portrays him as a guy that is really just trying to get a hustle. And he doesn't really hate women. He seems to love them, but also has to play an angle.
He's almost a pro wrestler or a UFC fighter where he's really more interested in making money than he is has any real beliefs one way or the other.
I think the tennis match, yes, it's a nice symbol, but the reality was the thing that should have changed things was the fact of the WTA, was the fact of what Billie Jean King and those women created with their own tour. That's the landmark, because they were making more money doing what they did with that than the men were making. That was the symbol. Bobby Riggs just sort of fit himself in there, and that makes a nice button to the movie. But the reality is that the real change, we should have been paying attention to the fact that they created their own tour that was making more money than the men. That's the landmark moment.
I even remember the Virginia Slims tournaments. I mean, I don't know if it's still going on today or not, because I'm not a casual tennis watcher anymore, but I do remember that around age 9, 10, 11 was that was a tournament that was still taking place in the late 80s, early 90s.
You know, I like the movie a lot too. Just kind of a quiet movie that came out this summer, and I don't know if it'll be top 10, but again, it's right there on the edge, probably the lower part of the top 10 list, maybe just past it.
I think what I mean to say is, after how many films have I watched in the past month and a half, 2 months, for me at least, it stood out as one of the more enjoyable ones to watch. There's no fat on it to me, and it reminded me a lot of what my parents were big on with those two.
Who's your favorite tennis player back in the day?
You mean in the late 80s?
When you watched it as
Stefan Edberg.
Me too.
Okay.
I was just gonna say
he was awesome. I mean, and then Wimbledon was the first real tournament that I watched in, I think, 1989. And watching McEnroe and Jimmy Connors come back and all that good stuff. And for women, I was a big Jennifer Capriati fan too. So I
was on the rock and roll side. I was with Agassi.
Oh, well, Agassi was awesome too, selling all of the Canon EOS cameras. He was pretty badass, and his shoes were pretty awesome too. They're like one of the first Nikes that had the air pockets in them. So.
But that blonde mullet thing that Stefan Edberg had
it was something, wasn't it?
I actually Googled him this week. Just to he killed a man in a tennis match once. You know that?
No.
He accidentally hit a line judge, knocked him back, and hit his head on the court.
Wow.
In one of the tournaments.
It's a tennis ball.
He did. The guy fell and hit his head. That's how he died. But he did get hit with it in the private area.
That sucks.
That was like the top of his Wikipedia page. I'm like, I didn't even know that. He was my favorite tennis player.
Yes.
The Stefan Edberg podcast. Nobody knows who that is. What?
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the main event for the linear, legitimate, and universally recognized, undisputed
classic.
The Shawshank Redemption.
Yes, and I'm in the minority of this movie fandom. I'm not a big fan of The Shawshank Redemption. I think it's okay. I've tried my damnedest to try and figure out what it is that's created this cult around it. And I think the thing that I'm going to settle on is really going to piss people off, but I think it's like the country music of movies. It's just mediocre enough that everyone can love it for some reason, and that's kind of where it come down on it. Because I mean, this movie was is it still number one on IMDb, or was number one for a long time?
Good question. It was
the highest rated movie on IMDb, and I think it's kind of like Garth Brooks being one of the all-time greatest selling artists. Would you say he's a true artist, or would you say just a lot of people really can like him because he's very easy to like? And Shawshank Redemption is a movie that's kind of very easy to like. There's nothing really wrong with it. It's good enough, and that's pretty much where I come down to it. It's good enough. It's not great art to me. It's good enough. It's good. Yeah.
It is still the number one movie.
And that makes sense to me because it's a movie that can create a large consensus.
I wonder how many people, in all honesty, have seen Shawshank Redemption for the first time out of the thousands of times that it played on TBS or TNT in the late 90s, early 2000s, or if they started with it from I am not attempting to claim hipsterism with the Shawshank Redemption at all. But
Too
this
popular to be a hipster.
okay, this is one of those rare occasions where I actually read a book, and then 3 months later, there's a trailer for something called The Shawshank Redemption. Like, that's not based off of that novella that I read in a Stephen King compilation, was it? Oh my God, it is. That's amazing. And so I was excited to see it. Didn't get to see it in the theater. Couldn't get, I wasn't driving in 1994 yet. Couldn't get my parents to take me to it. Had to wait until video. And when I saw it, it was, first of all, it's a very, very faithful adaptation to the book. When we start talking about the adaptations, what they're leaving out and whatnot, most of the book is in the film, except for some of the scenes that are in the Tim Robbins' character, Andy Dufresne, is getting assaulted. They're far more brutal in the film, and the things that he says are far more antagonistic, and there's much more energy in there. So most of the time when you extrapolate on a little novella like that into a large film, like The Green Mile, for example, is a longer film than it should have been. It makes sense to compare that because Darabont wrote and directed that one as well, and of course it's Stephen King. In this case, the filler material is actually very well done. Darabont is the solo screenplay adapter on this one, and so he managed to take that and flesh it out in a way that actually is better than the book, and that's a rare thing to say. To me, this story is more about the ability of humanity to, like, if you get that rare person that can go through the worst things and still see slivers of hope. And now I know that the word hope is something that's thrown around very easily, and this film does that, of course, in ways that you can see is tear-jerking as opposed to natural. But I think what happens when people made this the number one film on IMDb, it's because it became very commercialized, it became very commonplace to see it without some of the brutality that's a part of the story that makes it so dramatically effective for me. There's so much nastiness going on in the world that Andy Dufresne is experiencing, and he takes those little moments to say, I am the antithesis of this brutality. I am the beauty of the world, so to speak, okay? Using every advantage that he has, and then it ends up being the greatest revenge story on film to me, in that he actually lives well. In most revenge stories in a movie theater will involve some sort of violence begetting additional violence
And
until
Mel Gibson.
Right. And what this one is a, like, coming out on the other side, literally, you know, in living well, which is the best revenge that you're supposed to get upon those that have done you wrong. I haven't watched this in a decade, so it was ripe for me coming back to it. I found myself in the last 5 minutes when Morgan Freeman says those words, I would like to see my friend. I would like to see the ocean and see. I mean, I get very emotional about it, and it is, that last 5 to 10 minutes to me is incredible. It speaks to larger themes about what life is. And I have to think sometimes when life is very difficult, try and remember some of the things in The Shawshank Redemption that meant something to you when you were 15 and 16 and 17. And life was, like, at least in my head, was way more difficult than it may have been. And it kind of was. This movie and this book meant a lot to me then. Now I see it from a different perspective. I think it is, to me, a classic. It's definitely a top 50 film for me. I understand why somebody could think the way that you do. Mainly, you're coming at it from a good angle, but I think a lot of the reason why is because it's so commercialized, so popularized. It's something that bros will have on their wall in college now. And I'm not calling myself a hipster with this because it's so popular, but I honestly came from it from a different angle, and it became popular, which is great. It should have won Best Picture over Forrest Gump, but then Pulp Fiction, in my mind, trumps Shawshank Redemption. So I've still got that one right, guys.
Yes,
okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I'll full on admit that when I didn't see this movie until after any hype behind it. IMDb existed. It was number one on there after I'd seen it, or before I'd seen it. And it's a fine movie. It's clearly a classic because everybody loves it. If everybody loves it, it's a classic. I don't care. That's kind of the definition of. But I'm kind of with Sean in that I don't get why people like it as much as they do, because there's clearly several movies way better than it. But there's nothing wrong with the movie itself. It's more of just I don't get why people like it as much as they do compared to, like, why is it ahead of every movie that it's ahead of, which is literally every movie that ever existed.
It's kind of about an old school kind of masculinity where, like in England in the 1940s, there was a thing where you could not express, like, just it wasn't proper to express your feelings. So when you would talk about, the only thing you could actually express your feelings for was your dog. And Churchill liked to refer to his dog when talking about his best friend, to state how much he felt for his best friend.
That's a couple weeks from now. Shawshank Redemption. I'm just kidding.
And so guys have a hard time trying to express their feelings to one another, and it's nice to have a movie like this where you have two men who are able to have a friendship, and it's very comfortable, and it's very, two guys who clearly love each other, but they don't have to make it weird.
Right.
And I think that's what bros get about this movie.
Yeah, again, there's nothing wrong with this movie. It's just the fact that it's number one.
It's the ultimate no homo movie.
Yeah, yikes.
I'm clearly disliking it more than I should because it's overrated. And I don't care what movie you put at number one on the list. It's overrated because any movies. Everybody has their own number one, and unless it's yours, it's an overrated movie.
Back when I first created a top 50 list, 1999, 2000, in the top 10 were Braveheart, Shawshank Redemption, Contact, Seven, The Crow, like all of these things that existed during teen years that were very emotional and got me. Yeah, movies are great because of these, right? And over time. Not only have I not watched them as much, but they've slipped down the list, and then go and revisit Braveheart like we did just a while ago, and revisiting Seven. And wait a minute, no, these are awesome. And the same thing goes with Shawshank for me. It's more of a personal film to me because I just knew it before it was. I introduced this to my mom, and she was like, are you kidding me? I can't believe I didn't want to see this in the theater. I'm like, I told you should see this. The next day she went and bought it. Like, that's when you pat myself on the back. I got a win for that. It's like when I told you guys that Ex Machina would be really awesome, stuff like that.
Were we fighting you on that?
No. It was, I think that was was that the movie where I was like, oh, this is going to be really great. You guys are going to like it. And no, it was Arrival. That's what it was. Okay. Yeah. Never mind.
We were just cautiously optimistic.
Yeah. I was unabashedly throw caution to the wind optimistic. As usual.
Yeah, I don't hate Shawshank Redemption. I just don't like it very much. Like I said, it's another one of those movies I talk about where it's good enough. Mad Max, it's good enough.
Now, Mad Max.
I threw that in just for you. Just so I knew I'd get that reaction for him.
Ray, this is 1987. Did you know that a girl can be whatever she wants to be?
I know. My mom's a plumber.
That explains a lot about you, Ray.
We get two this week, right?
Yeah, let's get the one that doesn't really matter out of the way. Cold Steel stars, I think, Brad Davis and Sharon Stone. I had never heard of it until
the iconic Brad Davis.
No, pardon me.
And the up-and-coming Sharon Stone.
Up-and-coming would be a good word for it. Yeah, I didn't watch it. I didn't get to the 87 movies this week again. I made a choice to watch a deer movie over Empire of the Sun.
Deer movie with no deers in it.
Right. I was hoping for a deer-apocalypse film, but it didn't happen.
There are more deer in Get Out than there are in Killing Deer.
Salient point. So none of us have seen Cold Steel. Okay. It's not even Blue Steel, so who cares?
But I did watch Empire of the Sun today. Steven Spielberg. And this is a lesser Spielberg movie for sure. The story's set during 1940s. This British family living in Shanghai as Shanghai is being overrun. The Japanese are entering the war on the side of the Nazis, and this is not going to go well for the English living in Shanghai at this time. I opulent and beautiful and luxuriant and all these things. Great looking and just not very good overall. Spielberg directs the hell out of it. It looks great. Christian Bale, though, I just don't know what he was going for. Not him as an actor. I mean, in terms of Spielberg, because Bale's just a kid. I can't blame him for this performance at all. But I can't figure out what it was that Spielberg wanted. Because at times, the kid is just insufferable. I mean, you just can't stand him. And there's a point where after his family has accidentally left him behind, they get separated in a crowd, he returns to his home and his Japanese maid is there, and he's whining about his parents. She just walks over and whacks him in the face, just slaps it as hard as she could, and you're just like, yeah, all right, it's about damn time. Like, he's that level of insufferable. He gets a little bit better, but it's always just a little bit whiny. It's always a little bit over the top, and I really just don't understand what it was that Spielberg was going for with that. I don't know. There's no redemption arc for this kid. He doesn't really grow or get better throughout the rest of the movie.
I did see a teeny bit of this at one point on HBO, Showtime, whatever the case may be, and it lost me. I was just kind of bored with it to the point where this is like homework. It's supposed to be Spielberg, but it's homework, so I'm not on board with it. So I will see this. The idea is that I'll complete the Spielberg collection, and I'll see everything that he's done and be able to rate them and all that good stuff. This one and Always and 1941, and there's something else that I'm missing in there over time.
Always?
No, I haven't. That'll come up in 1989 when we get there. But nah, I feel bad that I missed it. I should be watching these things. Next week, though, is such a huge 87 week and there's Star Wars. Like, what am I supposed to do?
87 is easy.
You don't need to watch Star Wars again.
No, if somebody has a tradition of like, hey, there's a new film in a series that I like, and before this podcast, they watched all of them all the time, and that's like what their life was, and then we're less than a week out from Star Wars, they haven't revisited a single Star Wars film because they had to watch fucking deer movies this week. Like,
there was one last year, and the one the year before that, and
well, I haven't watched The Force Awakens in over a year. I've only seen the movie 4 times. This is not like me. I'm out of my element.
But I've seen it 3 times.
that sigh was Bob going, what am I doing with my life?
Prior to this podcast, I'd never seen a Star Wars movie. This is kind of it was one of those annoying bragging points when you're that guy of, I've never seen that. But you know it exists, right? So shut up.
Speaking of whiny kids that are really successful in movies, though, Luke Skywalker never got smacked in A New Hope. He was whining almost the whole time.
That's the problem.
I always liked Luke. I don't know.
Oh, me too. I was a huge fan.
I never got the whole whiny Luke thing. I mean, you can if you take a couple scenes out of context, yeah, sure, but I liked him.
Me too.
Good for you.
He was my hero. I liked him more than Han, honestly. I was a nerd.
Me too. My parents said that I looked like Mark Hamill. I was going to grow up looking like Mark Hamill.
It was always so cool to like Han Solo. Like, but he's the hero. Luke's the hero.
The saber is way cooler than the blaster.
Right?
Jeez, how to
not even a contest.
So the new Star Wars, the guy on Twitter,
he's going to cut us off. Stop it.
So next week. Oh yeah, by the way, this was our 300th episode. Huh?
Oh yeah. Hey.
And it may seem like wasn't 200 just not that long ago.
It seems like it.
Technically, when I did 200, I'd lost count. We were like at 224 or something like that. So this is actually 300. So thanks for everybody who's been listening. Next week will be 301, and it'll be the new Star Wars movie. Does anything else come out?
Yeah, there is something else. It's like counter programming. I just can't remember what it is.
I will figure it out. I will go see it.
Have we ever watched Brick on this podcast?
Brick, the Rian Johnson. Oh, that's a great choice because I have never seen it, and it's been on like a person in my life says, you haven't watched Brick yet. You haven't watched Brick yet. Why haven't you? And it's been like oops, now I don't live with you anymore, so I don't have to watch it. So I think that would be a great idea. I can retroactively say, "Hey,
I'm
I
a
did
big
this for
fan
you."
of that movie.
I
So.
like Brick. That's a good one.
That's Joseph
Ferdinand.
Gordon-Levitt, right?
Ferdinand, okay.
John Cena. Yeah, I believe it. Can't wait to see Ferdinand. It's gonna be so good.
So the reviews on Ferdinand.
Top 5 John Cena movies. Top 5 Bull movies. Top 5 movies with the word "last" in it.
I mean, we've got enough. How about top 5 Star Wars movies?
We'll lose Bob. I'm looking at 87 and trying to come up with a theme. Now, both a Jack Nicholson film and a James L. Brooks film turned 30. So we've got Broadcast News as one of them. Ironweed is another. So Uncle Jeff, there's a Meryl Streep film coming out next week that's going to turn 30. So we expect your input. We've done Jack Nicholson, but like... Has James L. Brooks got enough of a filmography as a producer / that's not a good angle.
The top 5 overrated Meryl Streep movies.
Ooh.
I've seen the post.
Wow. I'm cool if we do the top 5 Star Wars. We did the
All right.
stupid Franco thing.
Top 5 Star Wars movies.
Really?
I want to do it.
We weren't just joking. We're
No, that was
about
serious. That was a serious suggestion. Now you have to choose between your babies.
I have already chosen. It was hard. I had to eliminate one of them.
Which one did you abort?
I turned in a circle. Oh, wow. I
Back
turned
over
in
my
a
head.
Bag over his head.
turned in a circle concentrically and just fired. Nobody knows what I'm talking about. Hopefully they will never know what I'm talking
Killed
about.
a deer. Are there any deers in the Star Wars movies? I can't remember.
No. They were on Endor, but there were no deer on Endor. There's going to be a crystal fox type thing in The Last Jedi that looks really neat.
Yeah, I heard on Twitter, actually.
There's not going to be a crystal fox. They cut that. All right, so Brick is our classic next week in top 5 Star Wars movies. Hopefully I remember.
You can include the Christmas special if you'd like.
If you do, I want to have a serious conversation about your mental health. Like,
what can't you include? Because there's a million different, like the TV show, that can't count.
TV shows probably can't count, but like the theatrical Clone Wars movie, if for some reason that's in your list, or the Ewok TV movies. There's 2 of those that exist, Caravan of Courage. And
I think you and I are going to have the same number 1.
Return of the Jedi?
Well, you've seen my top 50, so you can definitely delineate that. Yeah.
Okay.
This is going to be such a great show, Bob. We're going to be so enthusiastic and draw you in with our electricity.
Yeah.
The other thing we also did is now he has to see this movie so he can make out a real top 5.
No, my son's bad.
What if he like turns out to really love porgs or something, you know? Like Bob and this cute cuddly alien creature. He's like, actually, I really loved the porgs. They were kind of cute.
I will say, the thing I like most about Star Wars is probably Legos.
Oh, yeah.
Because
Yeah.
they are neat things to make. But other than that, that kind of begins and ends there.
You should play the Lego games then, because they are like.
Well, no.
right
I mean,
next to
making the
hell.
Legos.
Just a weird little nerd aside. Did you see Stranger Things?
Oh, yeah.
When he's repeatedly dropping that original Millennium
Broke
Falcon.
my heart. As a guy that never received the Millennium Falcon, despite asking for it numerous Christmases in a row.
Stop dropping that.
Right. Do you have any idea how valuable it is, that you bastard?
Thank Charlie Messing, our key grip. Corey and Josh are character actors.
I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
Jason from New Mexico, our associate producer.
What? This is crazy. You want me to hit you?
That's right.
What, like in the face?
Surprise me.
Our executive producer, Uncle Jeff.
You talking to me? You talking to me?
And our movie star, Dave Sievers.
I want the truth! You can't handle the truth.
If I could quickly, just one more plug, because I did mention that Stranger Things for a reason, because you follow our Facebook page, also me on Twitter at Critic Sean. I've got an interview coming up with David Harbour, Chief Hopper, from Stranger Things.
Future Hellboy.
Yeah. I literally talked to him on the set of Hellboy.
Well, I don't really care about Hellboy, but he seems like a really cool dude.
Cool. But yeah, if you want to be a Patreon supporter, head over to ihatecritics.net/Patreon. That'll help us grow the show. I did sell my house, so we hopefully will be moving in a month and a half, or maybe, yeah. And then we can start the video stuff and maybe get the book back up and running and all the other things we have working out. But yeah, that'll all start coming out next year. And the bonus Patreon episodes, those will be monthly, and we'll be working movies in there as we go.
Oh, don't forget we got our Christmas episode coming up.
Oh, yeah.
That's
I
right.
keep forgetting about.
I need to find The Impossible, a movie that Sean likes that he has not seen. Wait, that he will like.
Shawshank.
Tewataneo.
Yeah, then we got to figure out how to record that week of Christmas. But yeah. But otherwise, that's our show. If you want to stick around after the credits for Flickchart, feel free.
That ought to do it. Thanks very much, Ray.
And we're the three best friends that anybody could have. We're the three best friends that anyone could have. We're the three best friends that anyone can have. And we'll never, ever, 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 ever leave each other. We're the best three friends that anybody could have. I mean, the three best friends that anybody could have. That's right, the three best friends that anybody.
All right, before we throw Shawshank in there to see where it lands, right now it's number 16. I do want to ask Terminator Salvation or The Matrix Reloaded?
That is rough. That is a rough question.
Or Josh can choose on his own. I'm okay with that, too.
Yes, I don't like either one of those movies.
Josh, it's up to you.
Matrix Reloaded.
Yes, Matrix Reloaded. By a mile.
Terminator Salvation is just hard to sit through.
It has its points.
Matrix was annoying, but Terminator Salvation was hard to sit through.
Keep talking. We're going to get the Shawshank Redemption to pop up here. And
yeah, I did not, the whole, yeah.
The architect thing?
Yeah, it was really lame.
Oh, it's wonderful. Well, we've already done this on the show, though, where I attempted to defend Matrix Reloaded. That went poorly as well.
right, the Shawshank Redemption or Robin Hood Men in Tights.
Well,
I guess I could take Shawshank, even though I kind of have a soft spot for Robin Hood.
Obviously, Shawshank.
Yeah, we'll go with that as well. The Shawshank Redemption or Inception?
Inception.
Rita Hayworth and The Shawshank Redemption. My Morgan Freeman needs work. I'll practice on that this week. I'll get a cold or something.
I will go with The Shawshank Redemption. However, I do feel like I have to re-see Inception because I've only seen it at the drive-in at midnight. Who? The Shawshank Redemption or The Fugitive?
I have to go with The Fugitive. Fugitive almost made my top 5, whereas Shawshank wasn't near my top 5. So
it's The Fugitive based on rank.
Wow. The Shawshank or Stranger Than Fiction?
Stranger Than Fiction.
Shawshank. But I do love that movie, Stranger with Fiction.
Neither here nor there on either. I'll just go with Shawshank because I remember that one better. Shawshank Redemption or Back to the Future 3?
Shawshank Redemption. Back to the Future 3 is a little weak.
Shawshank Redemption or Love Actually?
Love Actually. Got a real soft spot for that movie.
Yeah, so it's Shawshank by a hair.
Haven't seen Love Actually, so we will have to see how this works.
It's coming up on that point of the year where you can watch it. It'll be like holiday related, you know. I can let you borrow it.
New classic.
Maybe for Christmas week. Yeah. Keep it in mind.
The Shawshank Redemption or Dead Poet Society?
Dead Poet Society.
Shawshank.
I would go with Dead Poet Society. The Shawshank Redemption or Jurassic Park?
Jurassic Park.
Shawshank.
I feel like Shawshank's better, but I like Jurassic Park better. Shawshank or Silence of the Lambs?
Silence of the Lambs.
Silence of the Lambs by a very slim margin.
The Shawshank is now our 79th favorite movie on Flickr. It was at 16.
That makes sense, though.
Any other movies you want to run through the gamut before we go?
Just getting
Any
started.
movies you guys want to run through the gamut? I'm constantly run through the gamut with this game.
Pick one to screw us up with.
I can't, though, because you two are aligned on too much crap. So there's... I'm...
Let's hit the randomizer.
Hit the randomizer?
Yeah.
All right. Scary movie or Love Actually?
Love Actually.
Love Actually.
The Hunt for Red October or Me, Myself, and Irene?
Ugh. The lesser of two evils, Hunt for Red October.
Agreed.
Is this the lesser of two evils, though?
No, I love The Hunt for Red October, even with Sean Connery not being Russian.
Yeah, but he eats so well. I said that before. The Three Kings are as good as it gets.
Three Kings.
Yeah, Three Kings.
It's as good as it gets. I'll take Three Kings too, but I really liked As Good as It Gets. Was that one of those movies that people are just like, yeah, it's okay?
It's good.
Or is it good?
Yeah.
Well,
It's a good
I like it very
performance.
much. I mean, it was Best Picture nominee amongst
Right.
that 97 group, so it was something I was going to consider as part of the James L. Brooks discussion earlier. But
How do you rate women so well?
I think of a man. I take out reason and accountability.
Kick-Ass and Predator.
Kick-Ass.
Predator.
Yeah.
Greatest action movie of all time.
Except for the 3 dozen other movies.
See, you're Shawshanking it for me. I gotta go with Kick-Ass. The Pink Panther or Phone Booth? 2006.
Phone booth.
Pink Panther newer,
Yeah,
right? Definitely Phone
2006.
Booth.
Those Pink Panther movies were so
Oh.
terrible.
Director, Sean Levy.
Of course.
What he directed a few episodes of Stranger Things, though. Like, I mean, they were the worst of the episodes, of course, but
Cruel Intentions or The Princess Bride?
Princess Bride.
Princess Bride.
The Fifth Element or Coneheads?
Ooh, that's tough.
Because you like Coneheads,
I
don't you?
really do. That's like the deepest, darkest, guilty pleasure of my life. Is Coneheads, but I'll go with the other one.
Fifth Element as well.
That one.
Finding Nemo or Home Alone?
Finding Nemo.
Finding Nemo.
Edward Scissorhands or Back to the Future 2?
Back to the Future 2.
Agreed.
I'll go Edward Scissorhands. Signs or Backdraft?
Signs.
Signs.
I have a soft spot for Backdraft, though.
That's like Ron Howard getting bloated as hell. Like that. Oh.
But it's still watchable, bloated.
It is really watchable. Yeah.
You've Got Mail or Final Destination?
You've Got Mail.
Yeah.
I hate the Final Destination movies. Beverly Hills Cop 2 or Final Destination?
Beverly Hills Cop 2, I guess.
Agreed. It was actually, we just talked about that in May, I think, when it turned 30. It was way better than I thought that it would be.
Natural Born Killers or The Mummy, 1999?
I really hate Natural Born Killers a lot. Gotta go with the Mummy.
Mummy.
I will go Natural Born Killers, but Kill Bill 2 or The Little Mermaid?
Kill Bill 2.
Two movies you thought you'd never compare.
Kill Bill 2. Yeah.
Fantastic Four 2015 or Dude, Where's My Car?
Dude, where's my car? Oh. I really hated Fan Four Stick.
Okay, but I'm so glad that you're annoyed by that, though, because I'm annoyed with 7-7 Evan. Like the 7 in the middle of the... No. but Fantastic Four stick. Yeah.
It's easily Dude, Where's My Car?
So
that was
terrible.
a really bad
That was
movie.
really bad, yeah.
No.
At least Dude, Where's My Car knows it's bad.
Go back to our 2016 episode and listen to me discuss Fantastic Four and how mediocre it is.
The Pursuit of Happiness or The Game?
Jeez. The Game?
The
A
Game.
little bit.
I would go Pursuit of Happiness.
I like Pursuit of Happiness a little
Just
bit.
because I knew it was a game the whole time.
Yeah. Because it's called The Game.
The recycled joke segment of the show. Ratatouille or Phenomenon?
Ratatouille.
Ratatouille.
Yep. The Avengers or Kill Bill Volume 2?
Kill Bill.
Kill Bill.
I agree. Terminator 3 or The Blair Witch Project?
Blair Witch.
Terminator 3: Rise of the Machines.
Yeah, that's what it's called. Blair Witch. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest or Hitch?
What is with Flickchart? Will Smith all of a sudden. Cuckoo's Nest, obviously.
Cuckoo's Nest.
You sure? Snakes on a Plane or Transformers?
Snakes on a plane.
Snakes on a Plane.
Zootopia or Raiders of the Lost Ark?
Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Raiders.
Would have been awesome if Zootopia beat it. Not really, but I would take Raiders as well. Black Hawk Down or King Kong? 2005.
Black Hawk Down.
Yeah, I still haven't seen all of Black Hawk Down. That's the
I like
worst
Black Hawk Down. The
experience in the theater that I've ever had was Black Hawk Down. But I have to go with that. The little of that I saw is still better than 4 hours of King Kong.
American Pie or Signs?
Signs.
American Pie.
So I like American Pie, but Signs I just enjoy more.
Even with Mel Gibson. I think I'll go American Pie, although I do like Signs a lot. All right, last one. Reservoir Dogs, The Breakfast Club.
Reservoir Dogs.
Breakfast Club.
I try really hard not to be aligned with Sean all the time.
Breakfast Club is a really great movie.
It's not that good.
I'm starting to wonder, honestly, Flickchart, seeing how we choose things, then it would line up a particular selection of film or like a type of film against another type of film, like a more critically successful film versus a more populist film, and that's how we get some of the interactions that we get.
Yeah, I hate when they do that. I mean, granted, we're not tied to Little Mermaid, but really, Kill Bill and Little Mermaid. When would you ever think of those two movies at the same time? Good question. You've done it, haven't you? I mean,
I told the original for Little Mermaid is quite violent in itself, but
that was an original Little Mermaid. I've never.
It was based on the story that it's based off is very dark and disturbing.
Oh, it doesn't have a movie though, right?
No, it's a Hans Christian Andersen story. And
Thank God!
It's
I thought we were going to
very
have to watch 3 Little Mermaid movies.
like the
when that
Little
came
Mermaid,
out.
like all the mermaids are like murderous, and they want the Little Mermaid Ariel to kill the prince, not be with him, and yeah, it's very violent. I think they're cannibals actually.
God, I hope Tarantino directs that.
Oh yeah, that's news. Crap, man, I can't
news.
wait to see that.
But is he going to do it for real? Because he's been tied to things before that never happened.
R-rated Star Trek. What
Is he going to direct it though? I mean, or is he just on board to produce and
It
write?
was supposed to be the last movie he'd made, possibly. But I don't know. He was
I
gonna
would
make a
watch
case
the
that
shit out of that. I mean, and what is it going to be? Is it going to be alternate timeline Star Trek? Is it going to be like the prequels, sequels? You know, where is it going to be set in Star Trek?
It'd be like
Nobody
his
knows.
ER episode.
It would be sweet to see Tarantino do a flick that's like part of a franchise. You know, I mean, I know that sounds silly because then it's like taking all of his talent and wasting it in your eyes, probably. But to me, then it's like, wait a minute.
He'll still make it brilliant. I mean, the ER episode he did was fucking brilliant. But I mean, it was still like it's Quentin Tarantino working on an ER episode. Like, what are you doing, man?
I'm fascinated by that idea. I don't know why we'd have to make it rated R, but
that's because that's Tarantino. That's what he does.
Yeah, but nobody on the Enterprise or whatever ship is going to be like fucking Klingons, or something. He's not going to.
Well, the only reason they've never done that though is because they're not allowed to. I mean, like normal human beings say the F word.
Yeah, but in the future, when you've got the utopian type society that they're leaning towards, where there's no money and it's for the common good, then why would they need foul language?
Using foul language at all in the future?
Well, they did. Like Star Trek 4 has foul language in it. I mean, they did. It's just not in abundance. It's not.
Was there
Tarantino
an R-rated Star Trek movie before?
No. Not even close.
Would that be the first Tarantino movie where they didn't use the N-word? Or will he find a way to work that in there, too?
Worf my... Oh, Jesus.